at the highest level, a level achieved only by pedaling thousands and thousands of miles in a year. And often that year ends in bitter disappointment. The summit ends, though, with a fortune amassed through blood, sweat and tears. This is professional cycling, and the premier cycling series in the United States is the Tour of America. 7 races over demanding courses, each with its own character, attracting the best riders from around the globe. And today, it's the K-mart Classic of West Virginia, a 6-day stage race that demands the best of a rider's ubiquitous abilities. He must climb, sprint, and race the time trial to perfection. That's if he hopes to win. For the 4th year straight, the state of West Virginia welcomes the Kmart 6-day cycling classic. It's round 3 in the Tour of America cycling series. Hello again, everybody. I'm Phil Liggett along with Davis Phinney. We've already seen in this Tour of America series the flat race down in Atlanta, Georgia. 7 days later, it was the mountainous race at Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Well, now just about every element in world-class cycling comes to the state of West Virginia. The K-mart Classic, Davis, has just about everything, hasn't it?
That's right. Over the 6 days, you have flat races, you have hilly races, you have time trials. So it's good for all the men in the field. There's some sprinters, there's expert in every class that can do something in this Kmart Classic. Yeah. But ultimately, it is the man who puts it all together best, who has the strongest team, and that has been Lance Armstrong 2 years ago, Frankie Andreu last year, both of Motorola, who've been able to dominate.
The winner of the race is the best time over the 6 days of cycling. Now, the best team with all the elements in their team, it really is Motorola.
Motorola comes into the race extremely strong. They love the event. The entire Tour of America series has gone their way the past 2 years. They come back strongly, but there are strong American teams. Saturn, Chevrolet, LA Sheriffs, to name 2.
Yeah. Well, we've seen Gaggioli, how he started out as the sprinter of this series in Atlanta. Now we're going to see a very different type of rider. Last year it was Frankie Andreu. And this race typically starts in the aptly named town of Wheeling. Indeed it does, and the distance is 514 miles over the 6 days. And it looks as though Roberto Gaggioli has himself in a tangle before he even starts. A great winner down in Atlanta. Steve Hegg, who's riding on his best form since I think he won a gold medal back in 1984 in the Olympic Games in Los Angeles. But these are the men to beat, the riders on the Motorola team, and the team captain is Lance Armstrong. What a demonstration of strength he gave with Andrea Perrone down in Pittsburgh in the 2nd round of the Tour of America. The man defending his title, Frankie Andreu, who laid the foundation to victory right here in Wheeling when he won the stage. The K-mart Classic of West Virginia is a 6-day stage race which began in 1992. The winner of the event is the rider with the lowest elapsed time at the end of the 6 days. Day 1 starts the K-mart Classic of West Virginia in the northern panhandle. The first day is a tough 7.5-mile circuit in the town of Wheeling. The course is through the start-finish on Chaplin Street and down the waterfront before swooping back up a long climb. The race then goes through East Wheeling and the second shorter but steep climb before returning to downtown Wheeling and the start-finish following a fast descent. On day 2, the K-mart Classic's first point-to-point road race through West Virginia, starting in Wheeling and taking the riders to Clarksburg. The beautiful rolling terrain will pose a certain challenge to the cyclists of this field. Then it's on to Charlston, the state capital, where the riders will face a 7 miles individual time trial traced through the scenic steep hills of the city. After starting at the Haddad Riverfront Park, the race goes over the Kanawha River and up a long, arduous climb before returning to the riverfront. It passes the state capitol building before reaching the finish. The most fearsome day of the K-mart Classic of West Virginia comes on day 4, the legendary figure 8 of the Beckley circuit. This course climbs in and out of Hinton on narrow, demanding rural roads. This ride, that will almost certainly shape the outcome of the K-mart Classic, has been called by many American riders the most difficult day of racing in the United States. Day 5 from Lewisburg to Elkins is the longest day of the Classic at 130 miles. Today the race ends in Elkins, site of Davis and Elkins College, a hub for winter snow skiing and summer mountain biking. Day 6 is a long circuit starting and ending in the eastern panhandle town of Martinsburg. That will take riders to a number of landmark Civil War towns like Harper's Ferry. The distance is 514 miles over the 6 days. Although it rarely happens, a cyclist can win a stage race without ever winning any of the individual stages. It is the multi-day races like the K-mart Classic that are considered the greatest tests in professional cycling. Events in which the champions are measured not only in one narrow speciality, but over the entire range of a cyclist's skills. West Virginia Governor Gaston Caperton, a real firepower behind the formation of this race over the years, fires the gun. They now face a 53-mile circuit race here in Wheeling, the first of 6 tough days of cycling. The Kmart Classic of West Virginia brought to you by the West Virginia Division of Tourism. For your adventure of a lifetime, phone 1-800, call WVA. And by Breathe Right Nasal Strips.
As the fastest member of the Saturn cycling team, I kind of set the pace. The thing is, I can go all day without getting tired. Rain, the sleet, the heat, it makes no difference to me. Let's go, guys, up here. Personally, I can't get enough hills. Some days, I actually search them out. I don't know what it is, but I always feel great after a long ride.
53 miles, a 7.5-mile circuit. 7 laps lie ahead of the race as they face up now to stage number 1. And Motorola once again trying to dictate the pattern of this race as they did a year ago, but then it was with Frankie Andreu. Now it's Armstrong setting the pace.
And Armstrong, this is a good course for him because it has 2 hard climbs, Phil. The pack can afford to just ease up these climbs, but Lance does not want that. He wants to break open this Kmart Classic right from the first bell.
Well, normally 53 miles is not far for the top professionals, but in fact the pace has rarely dropped below 30 miles an hour today. And again, it's Armstrong attacking, and this time he's got a worthwhile opponent there in Barfow and the former U.S. Pro Champ.
Lance is going to be heavily marked here, though, Phil, because he had such a good ride in Pittsburgh. A lot of this peloton is not going to want to see Lance Armstrong walk away with this, at least not on the first day. But you see Steve Swart leading the pack through, so Motorola on the offensive today.
Worth noting too, Davis, they've left off the team of Motorola, Andrea Perrone, the winner in Pittsburgh, which means we have a clear leader in the Tour of America competition in this race, and that is of Roberto Gaggioli, although I don't think he'll like this circuit at all. New attackers now. This is Brian Walton on the move. He's been joined by Frankie Andreu, and Andreu, remember, won this stage last year.
And Brian Walton has been riding very well lately. He was the main aggressor in the Pittsburgh race. He's climbing well today, riding at the front. And, you know, these two were teammates for a long time, Brian with Motorola and Frankie as well.
Well, I have to say, I don't recall Brian Walton riding as well for a number of seasons. He has been so aggressive this year in the races. It all started so well at the beginning of the year when he got 2 gold medals in the Pan American Championships. There's Darren Baker, another vastly underrated rider on the Montgomery Bell team, and a certain challenger, I think, over the next 6 days. But this gap, never more than around about 30-35 seconds. But Walton doing a lot of work here, and it's Andreu who is content to follow at the moment.
And Frankie can afford to do that because he has his man, team captain Lance Armstrong, sitting in the back.
Well, the main field behind Davis, as we go out with around about 15 miles to go, 2 laps left, consists of only around 30 riders, because the rest have dropped right out of it. Here's Steve Bauer. What a difference a year makes. He was in the breakaway with Frankie Andreu last time.
And this time he's working on behalf of the 2 leaders.
Well, you can hear what Noel Gionca is saying. He's telling Frankie to sit on and not work, and that is not, according to Brian Walton, the right thing to do. Walton very upset by that decision, Davis.
Yeah, Brian is in a very difficult position. He's just got to pull all the way to the finish line with Frank taking the free ride because Lance Armstrong's in the back ready to come up should Frank falter, and he's not going to because now he doesn't have to do any more work. But Mike Engelman has something to say about that, and he's trying to be aggressive on the hill today.
So Engelman of the Shackley team trying to get some action out of these riders now because the gap is still only 35 seconds. And look at the face of Brian Walton, never afraid to work. But the instruction is for the Motorola man to sit in and wait.
And And they've gone clear just a little bit, those two riders, Bart Boyne and Mike Engelman, but look who follows it up, Lance Armstrong, and of course he's got the pack coming through. And there's just maybe half a lap to go here, Phil, as they head up the hill, and Brian's got to be getting a little bit tired.
Look at this, an attack, and he wasn't expecting that, Walton, because in fact Andreo has gone clear. He's pedaling a huge gear on the climb.
And you can see Brian Walton struggling. He's in his small chain ring, which means he's in a smaller gear, and Frankie Andreo has chosen the perfect time to go on this hill, just over the top, and he's got a good gap.
And a quick reach for the gear shift there by Brian Walton. The gap is confirmed at 30 seconds over the field, and the field consists now of only around 22 riders. The main field, believe it or not, has lost 8 minutes today. And now, swinging into the finishing straight, it is Frankie Andreo who lines himself up. History repeats itself. 1 year on, Frankie Andreo is going to win the circuit race here in the town of Wheeling for the second year in succession. Walton has not given up, but Frankie has his measure. A victory salute by Frankie Andreo, and Motorola scored again, this time with a different rider in a Tour of America Series race. And the third place taken by Lance Armstrong, 33 seconds back. But last year, the time trial was on the second day. Andreo won. It's different this year, right, Frankie?
The time trial is different in 2 days. It's not the same time trial, and we'll have to see how I'm feeling. I wasn't feeling super today. I was a little bit tired. And we take it step by step, day by day. You know, we'll see what happens.
Wheeling, West Virginia is an old steel town in close proximity to both Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Rich in Victorian architecture, Wheeling has a symphony orchestra conducted by Rachel Warby, the First Lady of West Virginia. Wheeling's Ogle Bay Park is a delightful resort that boasts challenging golf courses and the Winter Festival of Lights, rated as one of the top 100 events in North America. And so today too, and just a 2-second lead for the man in the leader's jersey, Frankie Andreo, having a joke here, so perhaps there's no hard feelings after all with Brian Walton of Team Saturn. But I've known Brian for many years, and he doesn't stay angry for very long. But I'm sure he'll attack again as the field now rolls away, facing up to 106 miles on the open highways, taking them to Clarksburg. And we'll be right with them after this short break. On stage one of the K-mart Classic, there was an attack near the finish by Frankie Andreo. It gave him a repeat of the story of 1 year ago when he also won the opening stage. Andreo, the first race leader of this year's race, now rides with a lead of just 2 seconds over the Canadian rider Brian Walton. The field now facing 106 miles as they roll out from Wheeling and head towards Clarksburg. Walton, in the Saturn colours in the centre of our picture, rides alongside the man in the leader's jersey, Frankie Andreo.
Looks like they're taking it a little bit easier today, Phil. Yesterday's race was very difficult, both in terms of the difficulty of the climbs, but also the pace. And today, Lance Armstrong sitting at the front, talking to Oliver Starr, just relaxing.
Well, I really think there would be no one more happy than Lance Armstrong if his teammate Frankie Andreo, who so often plays the helper's role in world cycling, was to win this race for the second year, Davis. But of course, on a day like today, no real challenge. It's a fairway 106 miles. The tactics I would have thought would be to keep this race together if possible.
That's what they'd like to do. You see Frankie Andreo just rolling up the side, so he's not pressed. The pace is not that high, and this really works into Motorola's favor because they're not having to control the race that much yet. They will roll it up at the end and try to keep those attacks from getting too far ahead of Frankie and just protect his lead.
Frankie Andreo just keeping an eye on all of his challenges. Armstrong keeping a steady tempo at the front. No one, it seems, willing to go out on the attack today. Just a few small time bonus sprints on the routes where riders can nip off time off their overall ride for the week, and there's also small time bonuses at the finish as well. Steve Bauer and in fact all of the Motorola team have now got this race very much under control, I think.
And they're coming up a little bit of a small hill here as at the end of the race it starts rolling a little bit more heavily, and the attacks will start to come now, Phil. But Motorola just needs to be on the front and covering all those moves.
Well, just about 20 miles out from the finish, and this is the first real attack of the day. We've actually seen the two Motorola riders here, the Bobby Julich and Lance Armstrong. Armstrong number 19. On the far side there, we've got Clark Sheehan of Montgomery Bell. Jeff Evanshine of the United States amateur team, and the other man having a go is Bart Bowen, so a very strong breakaway.
This is an excellent move, but it remains to be seen. Well, Lance Armstrong has taken off with Bart Bowen, but he doesn't look like he's going that hard. He's maybe even just soft pedaling because, of course, his man Frankie Andreu is in the lead, so he doesn't need to take off and win the race yet.
Very good point, Davis, and no call for a big effort there by the captain of the Motorola team, and as a result they've all regrouped and we're approximately a mile from the finish here, and now Motorola are going to feel they can deliver the sprint finish because they put all the men at the front. And you know, Frankie Andreu, remember his second place finish on the stage of the Tour de France in Paris last year, can deliver a good finish, and they're thinking of him because there's the coloured jersey, the lime green leader's jersey of Andreu, tucked in nicely behind the men in blue and red. They took wide that bend because, in fact, the bad surface has forced a number of the riders completely off the line of the course here. We've got Motorola men on the left and the right of the road as they approach the finish, and I think they're about to regain control. The field regrouping at the front. Motorola have all of their aces at the front. George Hincapie is also riding well. A lot of riders are being swept away to the back now. This is looking very, very good for another repeat, but Bart Bowen has gone. He's gone away from the finishing line, but he's got a lead, and it's going to be good. This is going to be a great win by Bart Bowen, and I don't think he expected that one. Bowen gets the victory in Clarksburg on stage 2. And the man he cheated for the victory was George Hincapie of Motorola, but overall, Frankie Andreu is still the leader. And Bart was the man who knew the tactics they were making today.
I think that they were, trying to conserve as much energy as possible today, keeping the group together but not doing a lot. And then when the attack started going, they were following them, pretty heavily. And, we just kept trying. We weren't really happy with anything we got, but we kept trying, and finally, one paid off.
The Clarksburg area was the birthplace of Stonewall Jackson, a West Point cadet who later became a Confederate general. Clarksburg's rich Italian-American community has neighborhoods where you are more likely to hear a Calabrian Italian accent than an English one. It's no surprise that Clarksburg's Italian Heritage Festival has also been rated as one of the top 100 events in North America. And so to stage 3 in the Haddad Riverfront Park in Charlston, West Virginia's state capital, on the banks of the Kanawha River. A crucial time trial now. It's only 7 miles. Lance Armstrong, lying 6th overall in this race, now needs 39 seconds to take over the race lead and to take that race lead away from his teammate Frankie Andreu. Now, over the years, Lance Armstrong has been a little suspect in what is known as the race of truth, when the riders go out against the watch. In the recent Tour du Pont, which he won one time trial, he lost another one. Now, how will he go? We'll find out very shortly when we come back. In the K-mart Classic on the opening day, Motorola's Andreu beat Walton of Team Saturn. The next day in Clarksburg, it was Bowen of Saturn. Saturn challenged, but is Motorola's Lance Armstrong worried about that?
No. Quite frankly, no.
Well, he doesn't seem a lot concerned now, starting 6th in the end of the overall classification. That means he's lying 6th in this race. Lance Armstrong riding around the state capital of West Virginia, Charlston. He's looking now for just 39 seconds to try and bridge up to his leader, Frankie Andreu. This is a very, very difficult course, and for a time trial route, believe me, it's certainly not flat. And with only seconds separating the leaderboard, there could be some significant changes today. This is Brian Walton Davis, and he's brought out all the streamlined equipment. He's on to a ride he hopes today.
Brian's got the exotic equipment today. I don't know if that's going to favor him so much on this particular course because it is extremely hilly. But Brian is trying to take every advantage possible here, and he's certainly going to be going for it. You see how incredibly low he gets on this bike, and that's the benefit of the aerodynamic position that he's holding.
Well, Armstrong is riding approximately 4 minutes ahead of Brian Walton on the road because they start in the reverse order of the overnight standings, which means that Frankie Andreu, the leader, he will be last to leave the start house. And Armstrong is setting a good time and a good challenging time, and I think Brian Walton knows he must match particularly Armstrong if he wants a yellow jersey by the end of this stage.
This is a perfect course for Lance Armstrong. The time trial that you alluded to earlier that he won in DuPont was very hilly. This will be a Lance specialty. I expect that he thinks he will win this event today. And you notice the bike that he has, Phil, is more of a standard road bike with just some special handlebars on it and, of course, the wheels.
Well, the mark is being set by Steve Hegg, the US Pro Champion. He is the fastest time so far. and I wonder if Frankie Andreu knows that. He leaves the start house last to go of the riders now. Now, last year when he was in this situation, he won the time trial, but this year, Davis, this course is far more hilly.
It's much more difficult, and Frank has admitted that he does not have the form that he had a year ago. In other words, he doesn't feel as confident, whereas Brian Walton, his confidence is growing. He had a great ride the first day, and he expects to try to take the lead back from this man, Lance Armstrong.
Well, Armstrong looking very, very concentrated out there on the road. The best time is in at the moment. Steve Hegg has returned a 14-minute, 57-second time. That is going to take a lot of beating, but Hegg is not challenging for the race lead yet, but that's going to help a lot. Frankie Andreu has the advantage of 2 days of great cycling by him and a clear lead on the leaderboard. He isn't wearing the leader's yellow jersey, by the way, because the rules state that you must have a skin suit available for the rider, and quite clearly there isn't one, so he's chosen his team colours. Now he's starting 1 minute behind Brian Walton. I'm sure he's getting the time check.
And you know, Brian is just cranking along here. You see how far he's scooted forward on that bike, just trying to recruit any fresh muscle he can as Lance Armstrong sprints into the finish.
Well, Armstrong coming in. It's going to be a good time. He's down on Steve Hegg, though. Hegg's 14:57. Armstrong is in there in 15 minutes, 2 seconds. That slots him into third place behind Clark Sheehan as well. But this is the battle, I think, for the yellow jersey. And in fact, Andreu at the moment is adrift by 10 seconds on Brian Walton.
The power of the yellow jersey does not seem to be enough for Frank Andreu, but it certainly is an incentive for Brian Walton as he just rolls right past his Minuteman, Richard Chassot of Switzerland, to the finish line.
Well, that's a great ride by Walton. It confirms he's a good time trialist. 15 minutes, 12 seconds. He's finished in 5th place. Andreu now must finish very, very close to that time to retain his race lead. And he won't know that yet, but he's still around about 5 seconds off the lead of Brian Walton's time. Andreu approaching the finish now. The time of Walton, 15 minutes, 12 seconds, but as you can see, 15:23 for Frankie Andreu, and not enough to retain his overall race leader's yellow jersey, which will now go to Brian Walton of Canada. The first time Motorola has lost its grip on this race for 2 years, and Lance Armstrong is the man who really knows that now, because they have a fight on their hands.
That's a pretty significant change.
In the stage unofficially for Frankie Andreu.
Well, that changes the race completely now. I mean, we go from being in a conservative mode to being in a very aggressive mode, so we'll see. We still have to try and win the race. It's not over, so.
Still 3 days to go. It's only 5 seconds on Frankie. I know Lance is lurking back there in the shadows as well. They're not going to make it easy on me the next 3 days. That's a fact.
Well, I'm sure Walton's right to worry about Armstrong, but indeed he is a man who deserves the race lead. Now we're on to stage number 4, the Beckley Circuit, 110 miles, Team Saturn versus Motorola. Who will come out on top? There was a time in these parts when coal was king and life revolved around mining it. Most of the mines closed a long time ago, but visitors can relive that part of West Virginia's labor history at Beckley's Exhibition Coal Mine. Ride into the mine and listen to a one-time coal miner tell you what it was like to make a living mining this mineral. Now this area boasts the best whitewater rafting in the east, taking more than 170,000 enthusiasts down the New and Gawley rivers last year. And you'll be entertained year-round at Glade Springs Resort, offering premier golfing in the warmer months, and its sister resort, Winter Place, which offers bountiful snow skiing in the winter. Team Saturn's Brian Walton now leads this race by 5 seconds from Motorola's Frankie Andreu. Over the next 110 miles, he'll be under pressure. We'll be back. There's a new leader in the K-mart Classic of West Virginia, Brian Walton of Team Saturn. After years of leading this race, Team Motorola now are in second place, but they still lurk in the background. Now they face 110 miles on stage number 4 on the Beckley Road Race around the state of West Virginia. Motorola normally have defended a lead. Now they must attack. And this stage has hardly begun, but this is an attack by Dave McCook of Montgomery Bell, and he's wearing the red jersey of best sprinter, and not surprisingly, Davis, Motorola coming across the gap.
Perfect move for Motorola, having Steve Bauer, who lost time on the first day, go out ahead. Now their tactic will be to get Saturn to use up their riders by chasing down Bauer, who really isn't of consequence in the overall threat. Scott Moniger of Chevrolet LA Sheriff's joined, so this is actually a very good move, but it's not going to work in Saturn's favor.
Well, Scott Moniger, if he gets a gap, could be the leader of this race. He's a minute 28 seconds down overnight. The other two riders, I have to say, are out of it at the moment. Dave Cook almost 15 minutes behind, and Steve Bauer lost a lot of time on the opening day. He's nearly 10. But look at this now. Team Saturn are feeling the pressure of having the leader on their team. They're all working. Wrong people on the front.
And Team Saturn has a hard job ahead of them today because this is a very hard ride, a lot of very big hills. They don't have the strength that Motorola does on the climbs.
Well, Bauer has started something here along with Dave McCook and Scott Moniger. They go over the river at Hinton. Now, this is a figure-of-8 circuit, and very shortly they'll start a long climb out. But at the moment, the lead is good, and in fact, Moniger has recouped his lost time and is the race leader on the road.
And what that means is Brian Walton is only technically wearing that jersey because Scott Moniger has enough time ahead of him at this moment. But it's a long ways to go, Phil, and we've seen a lot happen on these kind of hard races.
And Walton here being explained the course by Bart Bowen, indicating this climb coming up because Bauer is on it and Moniger, but where has Dave McCook gone? I think he's been left behind. Steve Bauer of Canada, but riding more significantly for Team Motorola and being used as the man to try and tear this field apart today. And look what's happened to Dave McCook.
And McCook reminds me of me going up many hills. That sprinter physique just does not go well uphill. You have all that muscle to carry, and he is a very fast man, but he's not going very quickly up the hill today.
Well, you have to feel sorry for McCook, and if he looks over his shoulder, he's going to feel sorry for himself because the blue jerseys of Motorola are tearing this field to shreds at the moment. This is a very narrow road. It's got a rough road surface, and it really is a tough climb. Bauer on the right of our picture, but in the distance, Davis, it looks like Motorola coming up again.
And Lance Armstrong is making a move. Perfect hill for Lance Armstrong. And this is also a very good ride for Scott Moniger. First time we've really seen him all year since he won the Redlands Classic back in March at the front of the race. But Bart Bowen of Saturn marking Lance.
Well, Armstrong has decided he's going to come out and help Frankie Andrea as much as possible. And now Armstrong setting the tempo. Bart Bowen trying to keep Team Saturn very much in this picture. They've ridden a brilliant race so far. You can't dispute that. And in fact, you saw Armstrong look at Bowen. He won't expect any help. He knows he's blocking for his team leader.
That's right. Bart Bowen is really just trying to hang on here because this gets incredibly steep. Now, this climb, as I said, favors Lance Armstrong's capabilities. He's the one who can just dance up the hill here. And you see Scott Moniger trying to pull a little bit of a lead, or maybe it's Steve Bauer who's just going to wait for Lance Armstrong.
Well, either way, Lance Armstrong has come right up behind Steve Bauer, so the two Motorola boys are finding themselves in a very good position here. But Bart Bowen is usually a good climber as well. A little acceleration there by Armstrong. Bart Bowen biting his teeth a bit, but hanging on to the back wheel of Armstrong, but not looking so comfortable to me, Bart Bowen.
No, Bart seems to be suffering. He hasn't had the form lately that he would like to have to be able to stay with a man like Lance Armstrong. And Lance, I think, Phil, is a little bit angry that he lost the time trial yesterday. And today he's ready to throw all the cards down and say, hey, I want to win this race, and nobody is going to be staying with me.
Well, he hasn't got to worry too much about Andrea winning it now because, in fairness, he's not the race leader. Armstrong is free to fly, but look at the state of Bart Bowen here. He's rocking and rolling his way backwards, so Team Saturn are losing a valuable man at the front. They have nobody up here now. Moniger has to face the fact, and look at this double take here. He's got to face the fact that he's now a sandwich of Motorola riders. And as Armstrong launches the attack immediately, he's spread eagle this group of four. The main field is something like 45 seconds behind. And Armstrong facing a break after only 50 miles. We'll be back. After only 50 miles of stage 4 of the K-mart Classic, Brian Walton has been forced onto the defensive by the team Motorola. An attack by Lance Armstrong has put him clear in the lead.
And Lance is certainly riding like a champion, Phil. The fact that he has gone out this early shows two things. It shows how difficult the course is, and it shows that this man is impatient to show just how strong he is.
Well, Lance reached the small leading group on this climb. This has been a very, very difficult climb, and only Steve Bauer and Scott Moniger are still in the distance. Look at this, and I think Armstrong, in fact, is signaling to Bauer, I'm going to wait over the top.
And they're coming just to the top now, and that's right. He's smart enough to know that he doesn't want to ride 70 miles to the finish by himself. He would just as soon have the others catch up. But look at Bart Bowen.
Well, I'm very surprised at this, Davis, because I expected Bart to be really in contention, but his form clearly not there. Steve Bauer has gone forward on his own. No sign either yet of Scott Moniger, who is somewhere between Bauer and Bowen. And Steve Bauer anxious now to reach his team captain and give him a hand if he can. There he is taking a drink.
Interestingly, Lance Armstrong has not had the valuable service of Andrea Perron, which we talked about earlier, because he's not in the event. But Steve Bauer is no slouch as a teammate. He doesn't have the climbing capabilities of Perron. He'll certainly be able to help between climbs to lead Lance as far as he can stay with him.
So Armstrong now free to win this race for himself if he can, since Walton took the race lead away from Armstrong's teammate, Frankie Andreu. He's now free to do no harm to anybody and a lot of good to himself. Now Moniger has caught up with Bauer, and the two are going to get back to Armstrong. This is a good move, because now we have three strong men at the front.
And Scott Moniger will not have to do anything to encourage the lead. He can just sit back because he knows how strong the Motorola riders is. But Brian Walton, on the other hand, is just suffering at the back. Bart Bowen has probably come back now, and he just has his team trying to contain any lead that they've lost, but it's a big lead now that Armstrong has.
So Bowen has gone well over the top of that climb, and in fact here is Bart Bowen, so he's come right back into the group. The gap was only around 40 seconds anyway, so Bowen can do more help here in the chase down. He's aided too by Norm Aldis. So Saturn haven't given up yet.
They haven't given up, but their problem is we saw what happened to Bowen on the last climb, so Lance Armstrong has the strength. No one on the Saturn team is of the strength of Lance Armstrong on the climbs, and he's got Steve Bauer here to help him. Scott Moniger, so far, is just taking the free ride.
Well, this has been a marvellous springtime in the U.S. for Lance Armstrong. It started with a great victory in the Tour du Pont. He's dreaming, of course, of a fine ride in the upcoming Tour de France. But now he's broken clear in the K-mart Classic of West Virginia. And the Saturn boys look a little bit perplexed and confused now, because the yellow jersey knows that he is in big trouble.
Brian Walton looks flat out blown, Phil Liggett, to me. He is having a very hard time today, and I think he's concerned more about finishing the event than just holding on to that lead.
Well, we all know he was worried about the whereabouts of Lance Armstrong, and that was before the stage got underway. But right now, Armstrong is looking very, very good indeed. And the Saturn boys are doing the right team strategy, but can they contain it? Now look at Steve Bauer. It looks to me as though Bauer is in trouble. Now, if Bauer cracks, Armstrong is on his own. And Armstrong is on his own. A time check coming up. Race distance to go, 42 miles, and the gap on the main field, 1 minute and 20 seconds.
And Steve Bauer has just let himself come right back to the field. His job is done. He did a very good job between climbs of pacing Lance Armstrong, and he cannot keep up. But you saw, Phil, that there was a 10-second gap that Lance Armstrong also had on Scott Moniger. So Armstrong is going it alone.
Well, Armstrong has done so many early attacks in top American races this year, and we've always wondered if he's done it too soon, and one must ask the question again. Has the former world champion attacked too early? This is a very difficult course on a very difficult day, and the stage being cleared for Lance Armstrong, because here's the other breakaway man coming back now, Scott Moniger for the Chevrolet LA Sheriff team. Brian Walton knows now his day is about to go all wrong, and there's only good news for the man who's in the lead, Lance Armstrong.
Go for it, okay? Nobody is chasing anymore. All those guys are in the front. Alvis has dropped. Bowen is starting to get in front, okay? We're going to have to make our own tempo. Still a long way to go, keep going though, okay?
Halfway through stage 4 of the K-mart Classic of West Virginia, the race leader Brian Walton knows now his days are numbered. The man who's caused the damage, Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong is doing just a fantastic job today. He's almost making it look easy. The only way you can tell how difficult this race is today is to go back to the other riders. Lance looks like he's on a good, hard training ride today, and that shows how dominant he has become as an American racer.
I couldn't agree more with you there, Davis. He won the world title almost in his first full year as a professional bike rider. And some say he won it a bit early, but my goodness me, he's matured well this season. Team Saturn still trying to keep their race leader in this action. The leading group now consisting of only 23 riders, but the gap here is now more than 3 minutes behind.
And Lance just rolls it out. This is what you train for. You think about it all winter. You put in so many miles, and there's so many days when you question, why am I doing this? I don't want to be out today. It's snowing. Whatever it is, you get out there because you think about the day when you can get out and take a lead like this in a race like the K-mart Classic of West Virginia.
Well, whichever way you look at this, the Motorola team played their cards early with a great attack by Steve Bauer, but their man has proved once again he's got the strength to do just about what he likes. And the group here looks very, very worried indeed. In fact, for me, they've conceded defeat.
They're just really wanting to roll into the finish and just get this stage over, which just shows how strong Lance's ride is and how difficult the race has been today. Brian Walton, he's just laughing about it now. He's been blown away.
Yes, but he wasn't laughing earlier on when he did think he had a chance of staying in with the race lead. But with everybody in this group, except, of course, Lance Armstrong, he could still finish up in second or third overall. But now there's no doubt who's going to pull on the race leader's jersey at the end of this stage. We're now on the in-run into the finish at Beckley, and Lance Armstrong is well clear. It does appear, though, Davis, the way he looks down his gear shifter, although I think he's got a little bit of a problem with this bicycle. It's not a serious situation to be in now because the gap is over 5 minutes and 15 seconds. And I think that's what Brian Walton's being told here by the Team Saturn manager. Walton knows now his day in the race lead very much over, because Armstrong is into the streets of Beckley, and there's the Motorola team car. I'm wondering if they've got a bike waiting for him. Yes, indeed, they have. So the gear problem not sorted out, and no need to panic, really. Nice little shove by the team mechanic, while Armstrong picks up his cleats here. But he's in no real big hurry now. The gap is over 5 minutes. This has been the sort of performance that in the old days we used to see Eddie Merckx do, Davis.
You just don't expect that someone would take off so early and take such a big lead. Brian Walton certainly didn't expect it. It seems like he's pulling out his course profile map and just saying, is there any more hills in this race today? I bet he hopes not.
Well, there is some bad news, Davis, because there are a few ripples around Beckley before they'll finally roll to the end of what has been an excellent day of racing. And this is the rider who's caused it all. Lance Armstrong now on his way up to the finishing line. Terrific effort being made by him, and when he gets there, he's going to look back on huge time gaps across the field. In fact, you're going to find riders spread over 43 minutes today, and that is a classic ride in a classic race by a classic bike rider. Lance Armstrong now is clear to salute the crowd, and he will have a wait of over 4 3/4 minutes before the second rider comes home. That's a result. So Armstrong finishes with a great victory. Luc Russen of Belgium gets in second place. Overall, Armstrong is now the leader. But had Walton's race lead worried him?
Oh, I was concerned. Yeah, I didn't like that. I know. We expect to win these races, and when somebody else has the jersey, and we're put in a position where we're not the leader and where we have to try and get the lead back, then maybe that's when we're at our best.
My team rode great today. It was just a little too much too early. Power got up the road, and we were happy with that. The guys were setting a comfortable pace, not too hard, just steady. The hill came. I think we were caught a little off guard with how steep it was near the top. Part was with him, with Lance. Fortunately, Lance just punched it over the top, got that gap, and all hell broke loose.
And did it just, Brian, with 2 days and 238 miles still to race. Lance Armstrong is now the leader by 4 minutes and 31 seconds. Can he win it? We'll know soon. We'll be back. The winner of the K-mart Classic in 1993, Lance Armstrong, is again the leader. The man who paid the price was Brian Walton of Team Saturn. The battle goes on. There's still 2 days left.
Motorola, for the first time, looks quite jocular at the start of the stage. They knew what they had to do yesterday, and they did it beyond probably even their wildest dreams.
Well, Armstrong is never happier than when he leads, and I must say the people here of Lewisburg are never happier than when they're eating, enjoying the Village des Pas at the start of stage 5, taking the riders 131 miles now to Elkins, another town in West Virginia that has often welcomed this classic event.
This year the crowds are bigger than ever. We have so many people from around the country, even around the world, that are coming here and visiting and seeing this race. We think it's one of the most beautiful races in the world, and the competition is great. The teams are great this year. Each year it just seems to get better and better, so we're very, very excited about this year's race.
You've heard of Carnegie Hall, but maybe you don't realize that it's in Lewisburg. Or at least, that's where the other Carnegie Hall is. Like its namesake, it is a hub of cultural pursuits. Lewisburg also has beautiful period architecture and Civil War memorabilia. Today, the race ends in Elkins, site of Davis and Elkins College, a hub for winter snow skiing and summer mountain biking. Elkins is the site of the Forest Festival that has attracted U.S. senators, presidents, and other dignitaries. Well, so far, it really has been the most competitive race, and there are now 105 survivors facing up for the longest day in the saddle. And they're all going to be worried about just one man now, I think, Davis, Lance Armstrong.
And whether they're worried about Lance or just really wanting to sit back and spectate while Motorola sets the pace, which they will do all day and which they can do. They have the strength to do it. Yeah, we have an attack. So one rider is willing to take up the gauntlet after yesterday's beating, which Motorola put on the field.
Now, this attack is by a team we hardly ever mention, the Navigators team. They are an insurance team of navigation instruments, and this is Hunter Allen who's gone out in front. Now, Hunter Allen is more than 31 minutes behind the lead of Lance Armstrong. There's a chance they might let him go.
They might let him go for a little bit of a time, Phil, but there's a long ways to go. As you said, this is the longest stage of the tour. So he can get out and build a big, big lead. But Motorola has so many riders, and they'll just roll the pace. They won't let him out too far. He's about 1:40 up right now. And they'll just sit back there and control the pace. And Lance Armstrong, of course, will sit behind them and dictate it all.
So the pace may just simply wind in the man who's out on his own, but Lance Armstrong more concerned with the whereabouts of those nearest to him overall. But remember, the nearest to him is more than 4 minutes 30 seconds back, and the end is nigh for this rider, because if he looks over his shoulder now, after some 30 miles in the lead, he's going to see the whole field, led by Motorola's Stephen Swartz, has come right back to him. And so it looks like for the first time this race we're going to have a complete pack sprint, or at least nearly complete, because some 75 riders still in this group as they line themselves up for the finish now. George Espinoza, the young amateur for United States, trying to lead out Fred Rodriguez. Rodriguez has the edge here. He has tremendous form, and Lance Armstrong on his wheel. But what's the left of the picture here? Because it looks as though we've got the Belgian rider Tom Steels in yellow trying to get through. Steels is going to get this one. Steels on the line. Has it come a steal? But no, right on the line. Dabasco is taking it off him from Italy. And there's confirmation. Alessio Dabasco snatched it from Tom Steels. Overall, there is no change at all, and Armstrong is in the lead. And these are the legs of the stage winner, Alessio Dabasco. Only one win last year, won the stage of the Tour of Spain. That's his first win this year. And nicely so, the judges have given the Navigators rider Hunter Allen the most aggressive rider of the day award. Well, Lance Armstrong, happy to be entertained as he is nightly by the men of Philadelphia with stories of days gone by. This race now just one day from the finish. The K-mart Classic of West Virginia, brought to you by the West Virginia Division of Tourism for your adventure of a lifetime. Phone 1-800-CALL-WVA. And by Saturn Corporation and its local retail partners. Saturn of Charlston, Huntington, and Saturn of Clarksburg. Saturn, a different kind of company, a different kind of car.
He is number 19, Lance.
And the skies are sad, and in fact it's very heavy rain for the first time for the Kmart Classic to visit the town of Martinsburg in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. Lance Armstrong is lead now with just one day of racing left. Is 4 minutes and 31 seconds. And I think, Davis, by anybody's terms, despite the weather, that should be enough.
Lance would have a very difficult time losing this race, although he has to be concerned with the weather, of course. You've got to be careful. But the benefit to Motorola of this weather is it dampens everyone's spirits and causes them not to be as aggressive as they might otherwise want to be.
Well, Armstrong, despite the rain, is feeling the heat at the front with a plastic racing cape on. Steve Swartz also guarding here, but the attacks are going to come, it seems, even throughout this wet day. The riders anxious to get the long distance out of the way. Now, Motorola must stay very vigilant today, because apart from the attacking riding, there's always the risk of a rather stupid accident.
That's right, and the best place for them to be, and of course Lance Armstrong is at the front, and he would just like to sit behind his riders. Oh, look at that. So we've lost a rider already. Chevrolet LA Sheriff's rider going down. So you see just how slippery it is. And the important point is, as you said, the Motorola team needs to be careful, especially Lance Armstrong.
So a little breakaway trying to go clear. That was Trent Klausner who made the fall, but all together again now as we come into Harper's Ferry, and Steve Bauer is on the front for Motorola. So they've pulled this race back together again. They know now if they can just hold it together for another hour or so of racing, they'll be home, but not so dry today, but at least they'll get victory on their team. Well, lovely little town this is, Harper's Ferry, in the heart of the Civil War about 100 years ago. And now, number 19, Lance Armstrong, is feeling that the day is going according to plan, even if he is wet and very cold, because the temperature has plummeted. And just look at the conditions here now as Norm Alvis has put in attack for the finish. Alvis has gone. It's dangerous to ride down the yellow strip in the centre of the road when they're wet like this. They can be oh so slippery. But look at this now. Alvis is hanging on. The rain is absolutely torrential. This is not a finish for the nervous at all. The chase is on from behind. Fred Rodriguez trying to get in the action again as he did yesterday. So too is Alessio De Basco. They're closing in very, very quickly on Norm Alvis. Can he hang on? That hill has come a little bit too soon, I think. On the line, Tom Steels has got it. The revenge of a day earlier. Tom Steels this time is the stage winner. There is confirmation ahead of Rodriguez and De Basco. Overall, though, Lance Armstrong is the winner of this race, and he finishes in front of Frankie Andreu and Brian Walton. So he becomes the first man to win this Kmart Classic of West Virginia twice in 4 possible attempts. And you can't do a lot better than that. And this time, Tom Steels as well didn't misjudge that sprint finish. So the first prize of $10,000 goes to Lance Armstrong with his teammate on his right, Frankie Andreu. And after 3 events in the Tour of America, Armstrong has the lead in that as well. Lance, did you enjoy it, this one?
It was good. Today was the only problem was the weather, and fortunately it's over.
Yeah. A wry smile from Lance Armstrong, who has now won 7 races this season, and on this sort of form there will be plenty more to come before its end in October. At first this week it seemed as though the West Virginians would welcome again last year's winner in Frankie Andreu, who opened with a clear victory in Wheeling. Then even the great Motorola machine found it needed a little more oil on day 3, when in the short time trial at Charlston, Team Saturn's Brian Walton moved smoothly into the race leader's yellow jersey, but only by a few seconds, and with Armstrong still heading up the enemy. Walton did not have long to wait to learn his fate, and the next day, during the stage based on Beckley, he could do nothing when Armstrong gave a virtuoso performance to sweep all before him. For Davis Phinney, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye for now.